There we go. We are with you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show of today's 220-1202 Core 2A Plus study group. This is the newly christened version 15, or I should say V15. They never really say version on the CompTIA website. I'm not really sure why they put version numbers because everything has a number. We now have two numbers. We have the 220.1102 and we have the version 15. So now it's very clear which version we're talking about. We have a lot to go through today. I have all new questions for you, and they are fresh. By fresh, I mean I finished them yesterday. So it's very good that we've got that all ready to go. Hello, chat room. Thanks for being here. Hello, folks that are tuning in. If you are watching this on the replay, thanks for doing that as well. We get started at the top of the hour. This is the pre-show where I am making sure video is working. You kind of see my video front end. That's where I spend a lot of time looking over during the live stream. I make sure that the presentation's ready on the laptop. We are recording down here. You can see the little Cylons going back and forth down here. And this is my streaming front end that tells me the health and welfare of the current stream. So far, so good. So we've got all new questions for you today. We have performance-based questions. We have multiple choice-based questions. We have we're going to talk about the upcoming retirement of the previous version of the exam. And I have an announcement today. We're going to talk about all those things as we get through it. So there's a lot to go through today, which is great. It's always fun to have a session where we can just sit around, talk tech. In this first hour, I'm going to be asking you questions. In the second hour, I will be answering your questions. So if you want to submit a question to that list of available questions, you can do it at any time using this URL that's just below my right shoulder, which is, it's not really there. It's virtually there, professormesser.com/QA. There it is. It's nice and long. So it's the length of my arm. That's how big it is. That's how long that URL is. That's a very long, very long. Are we measuring URLs in imperial or metric? I'm not sure. We'll have to work on that. I'm sure there's a standard, right? The proper measurement of a URL in physical terms. We used to describe packets in physical terms. We used to describe, and there you could still do this, of course. You could determine the size of a bit on the network, and it will be a different size depending on the type of Ethernet connection or wireless connection you're using. But if you did the math, you could interpolate from, based on the signal going across that wire, what the size of a bit would be. So you can physically measure it. We used to do that. Once networks got really, really, really fast, they just got so small that it was, I guess you could do it as a byte. You could do it as bigger. Hello, Malk. How are you? Good to see you. Is it hot down there? We had a little bit of cool in the air here in Central Florida today. So the holiday, the winter is coming. We're going to have to put on our parkas and wrap the pipes here in Orlando. Probably you're not going to have to do that. Oh, we haven't really had a freeze in Orlando in quite a while, I don't think. It's been a long time. So that part's good. So it's still warm in the islands. That's I guess that's good to know. So when it gets cold in the United States, I'm coming to see you. Coming to hang out your place. I'll bring some scotch. It'll be fun. We'll have a great time. It'll be lovely. I would not crash quite so badly that way. Wouldn't it be great if just showed up? Hey, I'm here. I thought I'd stop by. That would not be appropriate. That would not be a good neighbor. So we'll give you a warning. We're coming. Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for joining us, chat room. Good to have you here. It's always fun when everybody shows up live. Of course, we're on our Discord all the time, but it's different on a live stream. I feel like I've got more interactivity. I've got more ability to talk directly to everyone, which is kind of fun. There's our 5-minute warning. 5-minute warning. 5 minutes, Mr. Sinatra. We'll get things going. And Jerry says, cleared your Security Plus today. Yay! I need I need sounds. Let's see, do I have, that's not what I want. That's not at all what I was hoping for. I've got other sounds that are just pre-built into the mixer. See, none of those are going to work for us. I'll have to come up with something that would be an exclamatory happy noise when people pass their exams. Congratulations, Jerry, and your Security Plus. That is great to hear. I'm glad we could help in a very, very, very small way. You did by the way, if you would like to put your pin in our virtual pin cushion, you can do this online. Our virtual map, you'll be able to put through where you happen to be in the world and kind of get a breakdown on where everybody is connecting from here in the pre-show. It's another way. If you'd like to do that, use that URL that's on your screen. That apparently is the size of my arm. ProfessorMesser.com/QA. I think that's a fine measurement. We just use that as our measurement. I think we'll be okay. What do I also have in these other channels? There we go. Oh, so I hope everybody is doing well. We are already into September. There is all kinds of stuff going on over here. We're busy. We are super busy. We got a lot happening, which I guess is good. It'd be bad if it was not busy. That would be sad. So fortunately, we're in good shape. We'll have to make sure things work out. Glad you're here and enjoying what we're working on here. We got 3 minutes until we get started, so make yourself comfortable. Get a cold beverage. Make sure you are ready to answer some questions, and you can even queue up that URL because that's the same URL that we will be using to answer the questions on the live stream today. We'll see how we do. Absolutely. So a lot of technology we'll talk about today. So anything you have a question about technology, about anything that you would like to have answered during the second hour, you can submit that question at any time with our super URL behind me, the ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Go to that one. That is what you want. You don't need a code. You don't need anything special. Just go to that link. That will take care of doing a Q&A for sure in that list. So hopefully that can get you going. There is no app for this. The app actually redirects you to the web. So you might as well just start off on the web. Just go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. And then it automatically puts in all the codes you need. It takes you to the right page. It doesn't really put in anything. It submits a URL that includes the code so you don't have to do it. It's that easy so that you don't even have to worry about it. You're super good. Greg in the chat room says, Pass Core 1, the 220-1201 on Tuesday. Congratulations. That is great news. I always like to hear the success stories, people that are working hard and earning their certifications. And now you're here for the Core 2 study group. We'll get you through your Core 2. We'll pass that one too. Make all of this happen. This will be fun. I think Core 2, it's a little bit, the two exams have really become very different from each other. They used to be very intertwined with each other. Back in the 700 series, they started breaking things apart. So now they really are two very different exams that have a different focus with different topics, which I like a little bit better. That way you study for that single exam and you don't have to worry about anything else. We got a minute to go before we get started. 1 minute and 60 seconds before we get things going here. I should probably make sure all of my stuff looks good. It does. I've got this. I've got that. The second I say that, there's someone at the front door. That's okay. I got other people handling things while we're working on this. So fantastic. Great to hear about these success stories. We're going to get people their Core 2 exam today. We're going to work on these exam configurations. Look at everybody in the in our map. Everybody's checking in from all over the world. We got folks checking in from Africa and South America. Australia's checking in. Of course, got Malk out there in the Atlantic. It's a busy time for the Atlantic. Always get worried. We got folks up in, gosh, where are you? Are you in Ireland? It's hard to tell from this map. This map is not accurate. Like, you know, I don't even know. I can't tell if you're in Scotland or Ireland. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's hard to get a bead on this map. I'll have to get a better map. I'll work on that. It's top of the hour, everybody. I think that means we should do a live stream. What do you think? I think that's a great idea too. We are recording. We got everything running. So why don't we do a live stream? Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 2025 Professor Messer 220-1202. That is the Core 2 A+ study group. This is the study group where I will ask you questions that come directly from the official CompTIA exam objectives. And if you are someone who is trying to get all of these large numbers of objectives into your brain, hopefully we will be able to work through some of that with you today. We have a great deal to go through today. I have brand new questions for you. In this first hour, I will be asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And in the second hour, I will be answering your questions. To be able to answer those questions, you will need to, or both ask and answer the questions, you'll need to go to this URL. It's the one you see on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. You can just go to that, pop open a new browser, go to that URL, you just stay on that page. And all of the questions that we have today will pop up on that page. All of the questions that you might want to submit to me for the second hour will also be on that page. It's a one-stop shop. How much easier can that be? We have a great deal to go through today, so why don't we get things started with what we call our rewind question. A rewind question is one that we did in a previous study group. We don't do a lot of these because a lot of the questions I like to have brand new on every study group, but it's always good to go through a previous question to make sure you can get in and submit questions on the online system. And the way that we will test it is with this question. Remember, as a standing rule in our chat room, please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. If you want to answer the question, you need to visit the URL that is on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. This rewind question asks, a laptop is configured with Windows 11 in edition, in as in November. Which of the following would describe this Windows edition? Is it designed for mobile devices, requires an Active Directory server, media player is not installed, network features require activation, or it was upgraded from Windows 10? Now, if you think you know the answer, again, please don't answer online or don't answer in the chat room. Answer on this link. Both of them are online. Go to professormesser.com/QA and you could submit your answer. We will come back to this question in just one moment. Well, we got a lot to go through and talk about. There's so much happening with the A+ program right now, and there's important dates and things we need to talk about. Let's do that right now. First, thank you for being here. We do one of these study groups for Core 1 and Core 2 every month. We had our Core 1 study group a couple of days ago. Now we're doing our Core 2 study group. And of course, when we are not here and live and online, you can find us live and online on our Discord. And if you aren't part of our Discord, why are you not there already? It is full of tens of thousands of people studying for their A+, their Network+, their Security+, and so much more. You can find that at professormesser.com/Discord. Of course, all of our training materials, every video from every course is available for you to watch for free on our YouTube channel. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube. We also have an index of those videos on our website. And of course, we have a daily pop quiz question for A+. If you're not getting that question, you might want to subscribe on our website to the email version, or you can find those questions archived on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. Simply type in professormesser.com/ the name of the site you'd like to go to, /Instagram, /LinkedIn, /Facebook, /whatever it is. You'll find us there and the things that we are doing. There is quite a bit that we're going to talk about today, but this video will be good for a 1-hour webinar category CEU. Just listen in sometime during this first hour, and let's see if I remember to give you a CEU code. We're going to find out this time if I'm able to make it happen, and I'll explain at that point how you could earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU just for being here, just for being you. We'll talk all about that sometime during this first hour. Well, this is an important time because there are 2 weeks left before the 220-1100 series exams are retired. 2 weeks. Can you believe it? It's been a time and time and time again of us saying it's coming. Are you planning? Are you thinking about the retirement dates? Well, now we're here. This is our last live study group before these exams are retired. Just to recall, make sure you remember the 1101 and 1102, or what CompTIA has recently called the V14 of the exams, was released on April the 20th of 2022. And these two exams will retire on September the 25th. That is 2 weeks from today, exactly. So if you are planning to take this online, it is September the 25th, midnight, I think or 0000 UTC is when it will no longer be available online. You obviously would need to book your exam on a live training facility, a testing center. You might want to consider doing that on the 25th. Obviously, they go home at 5 o'clock, so you don't have to worry so much about the end of the day on a live testing center type scenario. One of the things that are important, though, and let me remind you about this exam as we get closer to this date, this becomes a very busy time. If you've ever gone through one of these transitions and retirement dates before, as we get closer and closer and closer to the 25th, all of those testing spots fill up, whether it's spots that are at a testing center in your local city, or it's the testing spots that are available online. There's only so many spots. There's not an unlimited number of online testing spots. So you have to make sure that you get a spot if you need to complete one or both of these exams before the retirement date. And as we get closer and closer to that date, it will be more and more difficult to do. So if you are planning and you have a need to take one of these exams before the retirement date in sometime in the next 2 weeks, you might want to go ahead and schedule that just so you know you are locked in and can take the exam. I don't want you to have to, you might have already passed one of the exams. It'd be awful if you weren't able to pass the second exam just because you weren't able to find a spot. That would be horrible, especially if you were all ready to go, you've studied up. We don't want you to be caught in that scenario. So you might want to think about booking that exam. Now, obviously, by the way, let me go back to that very quick. These two exams are the same regardless which series you take. There is one exam, the 1101, you need to earn a 675 on a scale from 100 to 900. You need to do a little bit better on the 1102. You need a 700 on a scale from 100 to 900. This is exactly the same as the scale for the series of exams that has already replaced this version. So there is not a new set of exams coming out. Those came out in March. So there's been the 6-month period where both exam series have overlapped with each other. This is perfectly normal. It's the way that CompTIA does these transitions. So a number of you have already taken and passed your 1201 or your 1202. Some of you have passed both already. You're already off to the races. Regardless of whether you pass both exams from the 1100 series or both exams from the 1200 series, you are A+ certified for 3 years. Once you become certified, doesn't matter what they do with the exam retirement dates. Those no longer apply to you. You aren't taking the exams anymore. You are already certified, and your big dates that you need to keep in mind are the expiration dates of your certification, which generally are 3 years in length, but it's very easy to upgrade those and get another 3 years out of them without having to take the exams again. As I mentioned here, once you pass both of them, regardless of what series, your certification is good for 3 years. Just one of those things to keep in mind. Today, we're going to be talking about topics from the 220-1202 exam. So the questions we have for you today will discuss operating systems, security, software troubleshooting, operational procedures, and potpourri. We'll have to see if all of those end up getting on the screen today. We'll find out in just a moment. Also let you know that the live stream is being recorded, is being automatically saved on our YouTube channel. And as soon as we're done today and I hit the stop button, it will immediately be available on our YouTube channel. I also create a audio-only podcast version. And if you have a podcast listening program and you'd like to subscribe, you can find links to the RSS feed at professormesser.com/podcast. We have separate podcast feeds for our A+, our Network Plus, and our Security Plus study groups. We also have an archive of these study groups available on YouTube. You can go back 3 years plus to be able to see the archive we have of the previous version, and we are already making new versions for this current set. You can find those all on our YouTube channel. And if you look at the YouTube video description, even of this video, about a day after we're done, you'll notice that almost like magic, timestamps have appeared in the YouTube video description. That's not done with AI. You know how we know that? Because they're accurate. They're done well. They're good. They actually match what's in the video. The only way you can do that's with a human. And the human we have is one of our favorite humans, Lori, my marketing manager, who's watching this on the replay. She's going through the process of putting in all of those timestamps. Thank you, Lori. She's done this for all of our videos to help you find what you need that much faster so that you can earn your certification, get that job, or get that better job. We also have a 24/7 chat where thousands and thousands of individuals who are studying for their A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus are going and meeting and studying together. So if you need someone to study with, this is a great place to find people. You can find it at professormesser.com/discord or visit our website. In the upper right-hand corner is the series of social media links, and Discord is right there at the end of those, something easy to find. Eventually, you will need to take your exam, and you could certainly go to the CompTIA website and pay full price for your exam, but why would you do that if you're in the U.S., Canada, or a U.S. territory when I have discounted vouchers on my website? These are the same vouchers that are over on the CompTIA website, but I've got them on my site at less money. We can save you money instantly with exactly the same voucher. This is one that is available at professormesser.com/voucher for any of the CompTIA exams. And not only do you get a discounted voucher, I even give you things extra. You get a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook every time you purchase a voucher. This is a list of tips and tricks that help you with the process of studying for your exam. And I give you strategies you can use during the exam itself that might actually get you a few extra points. And who doesn't want a few extra points on their exam? You can find out more about this at professormesser.com/vouchers. Back to our question. We have this question that asked, a laptop is configured with Windows 11 in edition. In, the letter N, not IN, not inside of something. N is in November. Which of the following would describe this Windows edition? Is it designed for mobile devices? Does it require an Active Directory server? Is Media Player not installed? Are network features requiring activation? Or has this been upgraded from Windows 10? Which one is it? Let's find out what you answered. We will close our poll and see that you answered 72% of you, which I would say is a larger number than we had in our previous study group, say that the media player is not installed. We do have a double digit, 14% of you said it's been upgraded from Windows 10. We have 8% of you that say it was designed for mobile devices. 6% say network features require activation, and 0% said required an Active Directory server. Well, that makes me sad. I try to get at least 1% out of some of these, but that's okay. All of you knew it had nothing to do with Active Directory, and you were absolutely right. Windows N Edition is one. It's in. The N is there for savings. This is a Windows Edition that was created exclusively for our friends in Europe, and it was made that way because Europe hates media players. They hate them. I don't know. That's not true. They love media players, just not in their operating systems. No, that's not true either. They felt the media player in Windows was taking opportunities away from other people that wanted to make their own media player. Actually, that's probably probably true. But then again, I'm not sure there's a huge market for third-party media players out there. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm completely misunderstanding the media player market, which is probably true. So if it does not have a media player, the N is for no media player. That's what we're going to say the N is for. There's no multimedia utilities. There's nothing in there. You can still install them if you would like to. So they don't restrict you from installing Microsoft's own media player. But to be fair, don't we all just install a different media player anyway? Do you really need some type of legislation for this? I think everybody's pretty much installing VLC at this point, aren't we? Or some other type of media player. Doesn't matter. If you're in Europe, you're going to have to install one yourself. That's probably my recommendation anyway. That's the N edition. N is for no media player, and the 72% of you are absolutely correct. That is the answer to this one. It's no media player. That's the N edition. So another one of those new topics on the 1202 exam. Make sure you are familiar with those topics. You'll find them all in the topics that we have listed in our exam objectives. Well, now let's do something a little bit different and something brand new. Let's do a performance-based question. For those of you that have not taken a CompTIA exam before, when you start the exam, you are presented with a handful of questions right at the beginning that are not multiple choice. A multiple choice question is like the one we just did, like this one, where there was a question and there were multiple answers that you could have chosen from. Even if you didn't know the answer to this one, you still had a 20% chance of getting it right because you could just guess, and there is something in there, statistically, you could get 20% of the time you're going to get it right. Probably even better if you use a little bit of thought and process in all of these. So this is one of those scenarios where the folks at CompTIA said, well, let's not give them any points. Let's see if they really know the content. So they have created a series of questions that are not multiple choice. They're anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. It might be a matching question. They might put you at a command prompt. They might put you on the Windows desktop. It might be a drag and drop. It might be a scenario. There might be a network map. However you could ask a question, that's a performance-based question. Now, the important thing to keep in mind, because people get very worried about questions that have no structure, that it could be anything. But in reality, the topics on the questions still come from the exam objectives. So as I like to say, if you know the exam objectives, it really doesn't matter how they ask the questions of you. You will know the answer because you've studied the objectives. Let's see if you've studied the objectives, because I have for you a brand new performance-based question. This one is kind of a fill-in-the-blank sort of question because I'm asking you to do this from the Windows command line. You could see the scenario is that a Windows laptop has just been restored to working condition after a malware infection. And then they have handed the laptop to you. And you actually don't have access to this laptop. They haven't really handed it off to you. They handed it off to you, but didn't hand it to you because the laptop's in some other building at some other site that you're managing. You're able to connect to the laptop and be able to access the command prompt. So in that command prompt, I want you to perform 3 different tasks, and I want you to submit these tasks as your answer. The first task is, before making remote changes to the system, verify the name of the Windows laptop. What would you type in at the command line to do that? The second question is, or task is, confirm the username of the currently connected user. It might be you, it might be someone else, or you might have 20 windows up on your screen and you don't even remember which one of those was the machine or the person that you wanted to work with. So these 2 commands are pretty important for very busy technicians that have a lot of windows on their screen to confirm that they're on the right device and the proper user is logged in to perform these functions. And then lastly, I would like you to verify the operating system files are intact and they are unchanged by the malware infection. Or perhaps they've been fixed since the malware has infected it. Those are the 3 tasks that I would like you to go through. Those are the 3 tasks that you could submit by visiting the URL that's at the bottom of your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA. And once you submit those, I'm going to step through each one of them one at a time, and we're going to see how well we do with this. The question again is from the Windows command line. A Windows laptop has just been restored to working condition after a malware infection. Before making remote changes to the system, verify the name of the Windows laptop. I'd also like you to confirm the username of the currently connected user. And lastly, I'd like you to verify the operating system files are intact and unchanged by the malware infection. You can submit those at any time with that URL. You don't need a Vevox ID. You don't need special codes. All you have to do is pop open a new browser window and go to professormesser.com/QA. We'll have to do all of that. For those of you wondering if there's a lot of differences between the 1100 series and the 1200 series, there's a little bit of conversation going on in the chat about that. At the top of the video indexes on my website for 1201 and 1202, I have a link to an article I wrote that gives you a detailed overview of those differences between the exams. So if you've now suddenly realized, oh wait, the 1100 series retires in 2 weeks, I need to move over to the 1200. I have a great breakdown of every single category in the official objectives. What has changed, what was dropped, what was added. It's all in there. I break it down to the nth degree. I'm effectively sort of showed you a little bit of the things that I do when I'm building these courses, because before I start creating the new course, I need to understand what are the differences between the old version and the new version. What was dropped? What was added? Because that's important when I'm creating these courses. And that's why you'll notice that all of my courses are letter perfect to the official exam objectives. We don't cover topics that CompTIA doesn't cover anymore. Why would we do that? And of course, we cover every new topic that CompTIA has put into the certification, because you could get that on your exam. Let's see how you did with this question. The question again asks, from the Windows command line, a Windows laptop has just been restored to working condition after a malware infection. And here are the 3 tasks that I would like you to do. The first one is, before making remote changes to the system, verify the name of the Windows laptop. Then I want you to confirm the username of the current connected user. And then lastly, I want you to verify the operating system files are intact and unchanged by the malware infection. I scanned through a number of the responses that you put in here, and a lot of folks spot on with at least the first 2. Most of you did pretty good. You either got one or both of those. The third one, I think, threw a few people. Some people chose things I was not expecting. Other people are spot on. So let's go through each one of these and see how well we do with this. The first one is, before making remote changes to the system, verify the name of the Windows laptop. So we want to know what the device name of this computer happens to be. Of course, as we know, all of these devices have been given names. They have some type of name associated with them that is different from the user that's logged in. So the command that we would like to use for that is the command, oddly enough, hostname. That's the name of the command line command. And in fact, if I do that on my virtual machine that I have here, my host name is Daedalus. That is the name of the laptop, of the device, of my virtual laptop. That is the name of the device. And that's all you have to type in is just host name. That's it. You hit enter and it tells you the host name. And you may be wondering yourself, okay, do you not know where you're connected right now? You connected to this machine. Certainly you know what the name of this device is. Well, that's not necessarily true, because you could have connected to this device over an IP address. And as I've already mentioned, in your role as a network professional expert guru, you're going to have a lot of windows on your screen. And many of these windows will look identical to each other. And you will get into a mode, you will get into a habit of every time before you do anything that changes on a system, you might type in hostname, just to make sure the window that you're in right now is really the window that you were expecting to be in. Do you imagine deleting data off a computer that's not the one you thought you were on, and you deleted it on somebody else's computer? That's not what you want to have happen. So that's it. You want to use hostname to verify, oh, yep, I am connected to the right machine, because the machine I need to check this on is called Daedalus. I typed in hostname. I got the name Daedalus. Therefore, I'm on the right laptop. Now, the problem is we want to be able to confirm that if we make changes to this machine, that the current logged in user has the correct rights and permissions to do that. Well, I can't check their rights and permissions until I know what user is logged in. That brings us to our next task, where we want to confirm the username of the currently connected user. And to be able to do that, we use the very simple command, who am I? Who am I is one word. It's WHOAMI. And that is the command at the command prompt that tells you what the current username is. Now, I am logged into this laptop, not with my Active Directory credentials, but with local credentials on this computer. And because of that, you'll notice that it puts the name of the device right here at the very beginning. It's Daedalus/Professor. Professor is my username, so that's who's logged into this device currently. Now, if I was someone who was working through the process of trying to make a change, but I'm logged in as the user, you may find that you don't have rights and permissions to do that. So checking that username can be a great check just to make sure that you know exactly what the different options are for that particular logged in user. So in this case, I feel we are on the right laptop because it says deadless. I feel that we are logged in with the right username that has the rights and permissions required for the next step because we're logged in with my username and I'm an administrator on that device. Now we need to perform the third one. This is the big one where we are going to verify operating system files, make sure they are intact and unchanged by the malware infection. And just as an aside, this command could potentially make changes to a system. So as always, if you're ever planning to make changes, you might want to make sure that you're able to mitigate any problems by having a backup of either the information that you are changing or a complete backup of the entire system. This is a laptop that came back from a malware infection, so we probably just re-imaged it with a standard image, but how would we know unless we checked? So we're going to perform that third step right now, which is to verify the operating system files are intact and unchanged by the malware infection. And the command that we would like to use for that is sfc/scan now. The system file checker, SFC, is what we are looking for in that view. So SFC is a very nice utility that can check to make sure that the core Windows operating system files are exactly the same files that were put onto this system either in the first installation or in subsequent operating system updates. This is one that if anybody makes a modification to one of the core Windows files, this program will find that. And by somebody, I mean malware especially, but it could really be anything. If there's a corruption to your storage drive, if somebody did accidentally delete or modify an operating system file, this will scan through all of them. And when it will check all of them, and if everything is as it should be, it will say that Microsoft or Windows Resource Protection did not find any integrity violations. I don't know where they got this Windows Resource Protection name from in the SFC, but I guess that's what they're calling it. That we have no integrity violations, so nothing changed. Your core operating system files should probably not change very much at all, if ever. So this is an important utility to give you that verification that at least the core operating system is working properly. Now, some of you have also used or you put into your responses for this one, the command for check disk, chkdsk. That's a very common utility to use in Windows. Check disk is responsible for verifying the logical configuration of your file system. So we're talking about the NTFS structure of the data that is being stored in a partition, or the FAT32. Either one of those is probably what you're running in Windows, although it could be something different as well. Those types of file systems and checks of the file system using check disk are making sure that everything is where it should be. But it's not really checking to see if the content of the files is still valid. For example, malware can certainly write malware code onto your system, but it will simply be put into the normal file system. There's no corruption by that malware. In fact, the malware doesn't want to corrupt anything because it wants to run on your system. So simply running a check disk will not check to see if any files that are critical to your operating system have been modified or changed. SFC, however, very good as an integrity check, and that's the command you want to use. So those are the three commands you want to be able to go through to answer this question. You want to use the hostname command to check the name of this device. You want to use who am I to be able to know what user is currently logged into the device. And then lastly, to perform that integrity check of the Windows operating system files, we want to use the SFC command. SFC by itself doesn't do anything. It just brings up a list of the help for SFC to be able to check the system and make changes and make corrections to the operating system. You want to run SFC with the /scan now option, all one word, scan now. Scan now, it's one word. It's a new word, scan now is what we're going to use when we're using SFC. That will go through the process of checking all of those files and confirming that there are no integrity violations, or it will find an integrity violation and correct that file to make that happen. So there's your answer for your performance-based questions. Hopefully that gives you an idea of where you can go to solve, to look for, and to resolve some of these issues on your system. And I assure you, as you become a system administrator working in a Windows environment, a Linux environment, a Mac OS environment, or whatever you're working on, you will use similar commands in those operating systems because you'll have about 150 windows up on your screen trying to troubleshoot what's going on. That's your performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you learned something with those command lines. There are a lot of Windows command lines you need to know. That's just 3 of them. So make sure you have a look at my video that goes through all of these different command lines so that you can be familiar with those for your 1202 exam. Let's now jump back to a multiple choice question. This multiple choice question asks, if I find it on my screen, you can see it. A technician is modifying a web page to display constantly updating graphs and statistics. Which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for this task? Would it be JavaScript, Python, PowerShell, shell script, or batch file? One of those will be the right answer. A technician is modifying a web page to display constantly updating graphs and statistics. Which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for this task? Would it be JavaScript, Python, PowerShell, shell script, or batch file? If you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. Instead, you want to go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. Some folks in the chat room were even talking about the previous question and if partial credit is ever given for these performance-based questions. CompTIA has a frequently asked questions file on their website that describes how they approach the concept of partial credit. And they have said officially in their frequently asked questions that sometimes they give partial credit on a performance-based questions. Sometimes they do not give partial credit on a performance-based question. I hope that's cleared that up for everybody. Now that we know definitively that it could be yes, partial credit, or maybe not, at least now you know. I like to have that glass half full type of mentality. And I think if there's a possibility for partial credit, my hope is that we get it. I really do believe, yes, you are going to give us partial credit. The challenge, of course, is that they never tell you. You will never know whether they give you partial credit or not. There's no way to tell after you get your results. So at this point, it's all speculation. We have no idea to be able to work through all of that. Maybe so, maybe not so. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a technician is modifying a web page to display constantly updating graphs and statistics. Which of the following scripting languages would be the best choice for this task? Would it be JavaScript, Python, PowerShell, shell script, or batch file? We will close our poll. 76% of you, a large percentage, say the answer is JavaScript. 14% say the answer is Python, because Python does everything. 8% of you say the answer is PowerShell. And then we're down to singles, not just single digits, but singles. 1% for shell script, 1% for batch file. So which one is the right one? Which one would I use to display constantly updating graphs and statistics on a web page? I would choose what 76% of you would choose, which indeed is JavaScript. That is what you would use to, you can do a lot of things with JavaScript, but where we use JavaScript the most by far is that you can configure interactivity and define interactive features inside of a web page very commonly with JavaScript, because almost everybody has JavaScript enabled inside of their browser. If you turned off JavaScript, the web gets super boring. The pages end up looking very different than what you would expect. And indeed, JavaScript is a pretty safe scripting language to have open. We've got lots of years of experience protecting your browser from the things you might be able to do with JavaScript. So that is a good example if you are modifying a web page. Also keep in mind, you'll see out there references to Java. Java is a different thing than JavaScript. Wait, they have Java in both of the names. Is one like a senior and a junior? Nope, not even associated with each other. They're not even family. They're not even kin. They're not associated with each other. Java is a fully featured programming language available from Sun Microsystems, or I guess now it's Oracle. You have now JavaScript, which is a scripting language really designed for interactivity in a browser, although it can do other things. So just keep in mind that if you see those two terms, they are very different things. JavaScript is for scripting. Java is for doing application development. So very different, or in most cases, application development is what people, I guess, used to do with Java. Java doesn't have a lot of that happening right now. Well, that means that the 76% of you that said JavaScript got it absolutely right. That is the correct answer. That's what we were looking for. Although Python is pretty darn awesome, and it does a lot. If you're trying to create interactivity within a browser, it's not your best choice. So JavaScript is the best choice for this particular task. PowerShell is great if you're running on a Windows computer and you need to automate things at the Windows desktop. That's not what we were talking about with this particular question. A shell script and a batch file are very similar to each other. These are smaller scripting languages that you can run inside of an operating system. A shell script is the kind that you would run in a Linux or a Mac OS environment, and a batch file is a script that you might run in a Windows environment. Neither of those are something you would use to automate or have some type of interactivity within a browser. In this particular case, the best one that you would have, the best choice in all 5 of these is indeed JavaScript. That is the answer that you might want to choose. Let's have, we got more questions here. Let's keep going through these questions. I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting through these. This next question, since we were talking about Mac OS, let's do a Mac OS question. And this question asks, a user has saved their login credentials in the Mac OS operating system. Which of the following would be the best way to manage these credentials? Would it be a user certificate, file vault, keychain, mission control, or iCloud? It's a lot of things to ponder there. You need to be a Mac OS person for part of this exam, and these are Mac OS questions. Certainly, a user has saved their login credentials in the Mac OS operating system. Which of the following would be the best way to manage these credentials? Is it user certificate, file vault, keychain, mission control, or iCloud? There was a question in the chat room about the retirement dates of the exam, that if you have taken the 1101 or 1102 and passed one of those, the 1101 and 1102 are retiring on the 25th, which means if you've already passed one of those exams, you have to pass the other one by the 25th, or you have to start all the way over with the 1200 series. Now, if you've already taken like a 1201 or 1202, none of these retirement dates have anything to do with you. If you're already studying for the 1201 or the 1202, none of these retirement dates have anything to do with you. And that's why about 3 months ago on our live streams, I was telling everyone, if you're planning to start your studies, just start it right now with the 1200 series, because you don't want to be caught holding the bag at the end of this when everything retires. So this is your chance. If you only have one of them done, if you've taken the 1101 and passed it, or you've taken the 1102 and passed it, you need to work right now on getting your exam booked and getting that extra exam passed before the 25th, or you will have to start over. Nobody wants to do that. Do not start over. Do not be in that position. That's not where you want to be. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asks, a user has saved their login credentials in the Mac OS operating system. Which of the following would be the best way to manage these credentials? Would you use user certificate, file vault, keychain, mission control, or iCloud? I want to say it that way. I have a feeling I should. 72% of you, again, a big number, say the answer is keychain, but we do have 11% say the answer is iCloud, and 10% say the answer is file vault. 3% of you say user certificate, and 2% say mission control. Yeah, you can tell where I grew up, right? You know exactly the sticks of Florida that I came from for sure. Is 72% keychain the right answer? Let's have a look. Yes, indeed it is. Of course it is. That's what you would use, is the keychain function within macOS to be able to provide that functionality. You can see everything associated with authentication, certificates, private information. It's all stored in the keychain. It's integrated into the macOS operating system, and that's why you'll find that a lot of third-party tools and browsers that you use in macOS are not saving the information in the browser. They're just saving it in the keychain of the operating system, which makes it easy to manage all of your authentications in one place. That is a great utility to have, an important one to know about, especially if you need to check certificates, if you want to delete someone's previously saved authentications. They are all in the keychain. 11% of you said iCloud, and although there is some authentication information stored in iCloud, and you might even be storing your encrypted keychain in iCloud, that is not the tool that allows you to manage the credentials that are stored there. If you want to manage those credentials, they have to be done in the keychain app itself. 10% of you said the answer was File Vault. File Vault is the macOS version of BitLocker. So that's the full disk encryption for macOS is File Vault. And that's why that's great for protecting your data, but not so great for managing your login credentials, not what you would use. 3% of you said user certificate. A user certificate has information in it specific to identifying a machine or identifying a user, but that's not where you manage the certificates. You manage them in keychain. And mission control is a front end to your operating system where it pops out all of the windows that you happen to have in your system, sort of like that. There you get a little sneak peek of what we're doing later. There it is. Only have two things up on my screen there, but it opens everything up and allows you to zoom in on a single app. And if you're running a lot of apps at one time, it shows you like everything on one page, and then you can sort of zoom back down into the application. In this case, keychain is what we were looking for. That's the answer we wanted. That's the thing that we were hoping to find. And if you answered keychain, 72% of you got that question absolutely correct. Well, as you've already seen, the 1202 exam, and really the 1201 exam also, has just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of topics that you need to know to pass this exam. You're going to be studying topics from operating systems, security, networking, cloud-based systems, troubleshooting, and so much more. One of the challenges with that is just being able to watch every video. Our A+ series is 137 videos for the 1201 and 1202. That's a lot of videos, over 19 hours of content. So if you're someone who is studying for your exam, you might be able to go through all 137 videos, but what if you just don't have time? Well, one of the things that I've done is take all of the important data, all of the important information, everything you need to know from these videos, and I put them into one single document for the 1202. I have another one of these for the 1201, and it is my set of course notes. Let's see it in 2 pages here. This is the PDF version, so all of the text, all of the important graphics, all of the important charts, everything that is important in that video has been taken out of the video, put into this document in order so that if you wanted to, you could even follow along as you're going through every video. These are my course notes. We also have flavors of this, not only in a PDF version, but if you wanted a printed version. Let me bring me up on the screen. I think we're going to see 2 of me. That's okay. So two is twice as good, really. So it's the same information, but it's just in a printed form on beautiful printed color pages. It is perfect bound, as they say in the industry, which is what we use for paperback books. So this is something that you will not only be able to read through very easily, hopefully you'll be able to take this with you everywhere you go and study. And if you get both the core 1 and the core 2 at the same time, there we go, we'll put them in order, then you can get a little bit of a discount. Those are available on the website. You can find out more at professormesser.com/ can't even see it there. There we go, /1202 notes. So it's a place you can go and get those notes that are important for your exam. We have a lot more on our website as well. That same page tells you a lot about all of our other study materials. And also your support purchasing these additional study materials also helps us keep this site going. So thank you so much for your support. It really does go a long way to keeping the lights on. That's a win-win in my mind. You've got some great study materials. You're helping us make more study materials for more people down the line. That's absolutely a win-win. Speaking of winning, let's do another question, shall we? Here's the next question on our list, and it asks, a network technician has disabled SSID broadcasts on an access point. Which of the following would be the result of this configuration? Would it be Users cannot seamlessly move between access points. Applications will not be able to automatically open incoming ports. DHCP reservations will not be applied to new network devices. All wireless traffic will be encrypted by default, or the network will not appear in the list of available wireless links. Now, if you think you know the answer to this one, please no answers in the chat room. Instead, you'll want to follow the link on your screen, go to professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. See if you know what this one happens to be. Have you ever turned that off before? Have you ever turned off SSID broadcasts? You've disabled them? Maybe you know what the answer is in this case. But this is one where you can absolutely go through this list and find what you think the right answer might be. Follow the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to lock in your answer. A lot of people getting their answers in quickly on these. I never know if that's because we really know the answer or maybe we're just all guessing. None of us know the answer and we're really all guessing. We'll have to see if you know what the answer happens to be. This might be a good one to know about. See if you're familiar. Knowing about networking in general is certainly important for the exam. Troubleshooting networks is also important, not just for the 1201. There's a little bit of networking in the 1202 as well. But specifically, this one that deals with SSID broadcasts is something to consider because in the 1202 exam, you're getting more into the configurations that you would use in different scenarios. So let's see how well you knew this configuration question. The question again asks, a network technician has disabled SSID broadcasts on an access point. Which of the following would be the result of this configuration? Users cannot seamlessly move between access points. Applications will not be able to automatically open incoming ports. DHCP reservations will not be applied to new network devices. All wireless traffic will be encrypted by default, or the network will not appear in the list of available wireless links. What did you choose? Well, let's find out. A huge number, an enormous number, saying 92% of you say the network will not appear in the list of available wireless links. That's a pretty big number, and because it's so large, of course, everything else is single digits. 4% of you said that users cannot seamlessly move between access points. 2% said applications will not be able to automatically open incoming ports, and 2% also said DHCP reservations will not be applied to new network devices, and nobody said that all wireless traffic will be encrypted by default. The answer, of course, is that 92% of you that say the network will not appear in the list of available wireless links. That's one of the benefits of enabling and disabling that SSID broadcast or management function, because it's one that really is able to change the way you manage what people see. It doesn't change how people are able to access the network. People can still access the network even if you've disabled SSID broadcasts, but it's one where if you wanted to simply remove your network from that enormous list of networks that tends to pop up in certain places that are very, very congested, it's one way to simplify that list a bit by getting rid of wireless networks that don't necessarily need to be listed there. You could still manually type in the name of the wireless network if you know it and connect to that wireless network, but this is more of a management function. It's not a security tool. It's really more for ease of use, user interface, and make it easier to find the networks that you do want to connect to, which is why SSID management can be pretty important. But as many of you have already seen, you've already done this, you've already worked through this, or you're just super smart. You already know these topics from the exam. The network will not appear in the list of wireless links. Being able to seamlessly move between access points is a functionality that's already built into wireless networking, but you have to make sure that the configuration on both access points is identical to each other to make that seamless link between them. So moving seamlessly between access points has nothing to do with whether you've enabled or disabled SSID broadcasts. 2% of you said applications will not be able to automatically open incoming ports. You may even be thinking to yourself, wait, can applications do that? Well, they can if you have enabled universal plug and play, UPnP. That may be configured on your access point. That UPnP functionality allows applications to change the configuration of your access point and effectively open it up to the internet. Sounds scary, because it is. I would really recommend that you do not work through any of those scenarios where you automatically allow. In fact, the first thing you really probably should do is disable universal plug and play, and you'll be fine. DHCP reservations will not be applied to new network devices. Nope, they'll still be applied whether new network devices, those as they hit the network, whether SSID broadcasts are enabled or disabled, doesn't matter. They're going to receive a DHCP, and even if one is reserved for that device, they'll still receive it regardless of the SSID broadcast configuration. And as most of you know, WPA3 and other encryption technologies were not listed in this question. Therefore, wireless traffic encrypted by default is not the right answer, and exactly 0% of you knew that that was not the right answer. Well done with this huge number. 92% of you say that the network will not appear in the list of available wireless links, and that is exactly the right answer. Let's do some troubleshooting now, shall we? This next question is all about troubleshooting. It says, after installing a new video driver, a PC now boots to a blue screen of death. Which of the following would be the best way to troubleshoot this issue? Should we use the last known good configuration? Should we reinstall the Windows operating system? Should we reseat the video adapter? Should we disable secure boot in the BIOS? Or should we disconnect power for 10 seconds and restart the system? It's got to be one of those, right? If you think you know the answer, please lock your answer in at professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Instead, you want to lock your answer in with the URL that is on your screen. How would you troubleshoot this one? Because there are different ways to do that. In fact, with the answers that are here, I would say a minimum of 2 of these answers would actually work. So this is a very common thing that you will run into on the exam, is that technically speaking, you could do more than one of these to ultimately resolve the problem. But that wasn't the question. The question said, which of the following would be the best way to troubleshoot this issue? And one of the great things about these questions that give you the best way or the most common way or the thing you have to pick the top of, whenever you get a question like this, the one that is the answer is almost always very obviously the best way to do this. So you should be able to logically step through every possible answer to be able to look through these. Also, CompTIA likes to use those best way type questions because it requires you to read every single answer and evaluate every single answer from every other answer, which makes it a little bit more of a difficult problem. It's not just asking you, what's the way? Because if it's a single answer, you will be able to find it very quickly. There's the answer, you move on. This is one where you have to read every single question, every part of the question, read every single answer, and then really pick the right one from all 5 of these. On your exam, you probably get 4. Let's see how you did with this one. After installing a new video driver, a PC now boots to a blue screen of death. Which of the following would be the best way to troubleshoot this issue? Would it be to use the last known good configuration, to reinstall the Windows operating system, to reseat the video adapter, to disable secure boot in the BIOS, or to disconnect power for 10 seconds and restart the system? The blue screen of death sounds so scary, but it's very easy to fix. All you have to do is use, as 76% of you said, use the last known good configuration. This is built into the Windows operating system really for this very scenario, so that if you do something that breaks the system, you can easily tell Windows, I messed up there. Let's go back to the way it was. Let's go back to the previous configuration to make that happen. That would be one thing that you could do to be able to solve this problem. And it solves it so quickly. It makes it so easy. You click, 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 and you're done to make that happen. So these new video drivers that you run into, this is a problem that I ran into. So Windows can go through, you load this new driver. I've had video drivers fail before they were even able to get to the login prompt. So using the last known good configuration, which is an option now that you have to do some extra things to turn on inside of Windows 11 and Windows 10, but it's still in there. Don't worry. It's still hidden in there. I think Microsoft is pushing us more to go to their automated processes of their startup repair. And Startup Repair would be a perfectly reasonable response to this as well, especially since Startup Repair is a little bit more accessible in the Microsoft menus, but I didn't put that as an option, so you can't choose that one. The other option that would have worked had you chose it is reinstall the Windows operating system. That would work too, because when you reinstall Windows, it reinstalls the video driver. Then again, it also makes changes to the operating system and potentially removes data from your system. So that is why, although technically that would work, it is certainly not your first answer with any of these. Reinstalling Windows should never be the first answer. That is one that involves change. It could potentially delete data, could potentially delete user data. This is not really the best option. And that's why we did not choose that. Only 2% of you chose that one. Reseat the video adapter. In this particular case, I never said that there was a separate video adapter. All I said is that we were installing a new video driver. The video piece of it itself may be integrated into the CPU. There may not be a video adapter. Therefore, reseating something that could potentially not exist is probably not your best way to troubleshoot this issue. Now, even if you did have a separate video adapter and you reseated it, the video adapter worked fine before we installed the new video driver. We didn't move anything, so why would that be the first place we go? In fact, that's probably the worst way to do this. It takes longer to take the system apart, take the video card out, put the video card back in, put the cover back on, restart the system. Oh, we could have much faster just used last known good configuration. We would have been done. And by the way, after you reseated it, still wouldn't fixed it, because our problem happened when we installed a new video driver. This is a software problem. It's not a hardware problem. 7% of you said disconnect power for 10 seconds and restart the system. Shouldn't that be what we always do anyway? That's probably something we should probably have already done in this case. But in this scenario, since we know that we have already made a change on the system, we know what the change consisted of, and when the system started up, it gave us a blue screen, probably pointing us to the driver that caused the blue screen. This is not something a restart is going to do. We could restart a million times. It's not going to fix this issue. We brought this upon ourselves. And then 4% of you said disable secure boot in the BIOS. If you do that, you're not going to be able to start Windows. Windows requires you to have secure boot enabled. If you disable it, now Windows will never start. We're going backwards. That's not the choice we would use. Only 4% of you chose that one. And so those are the different options you would have. We already talked about reinstalling Windows at 2%. The best answer here, the 76% of you that said use the last known good configuration, is exactly what you should do. Otherwise, you get that. Oops, we got a blue screen of death. That's not what we want to be able to do. We want to do something completely different. We want to be able to have this system working, and the last known good configuration can get us out of that pickle very, very, very quickly, which is kind of nice to be able to do that. Now, one of the things that we like to do at the end of these study groups, we're not quite at the end yet. I have another question for you. But one of the things we like to do is really talk about the exam objectives. These are incredibly important because everything that is on this exam is listed in these exam objectives. Almost 110% of everything. They stay so close to this list. That is exactly what you would want to use for that. And this set of objectives is what we use to build our video course. It's also what we use to build our practice exams. You may be thinking to yourself, yes, but there are no practice exams for this particular version, is there? Well, I think now we can actually tell you, yes, there is indeed. If you're someone who's used our practice exams in the past, maybe for your 1201 exam, and you've wondered, hey, are we going to get a 1202 version of these exams? This is my completely revamped and brand new 1202 practice exams book. Every single one of the practice exams in this book are designed to give you exactly the topics covered in the CompTIA exam objectives. You won't find outdated questions in this. You won't find questions referencing something that was on a previous exam. I can't stand it when you get outdated questions. That doesn't help you pass the current version of the exam. We've also revamped every question in here and gone through every question to make sure that it complies with those exam objectives. And we created some brand new performance-based questions in here as well. So what I thought would be fun to do is to give you a question from this book, just to give you a feel for how this works. I picked one out earlier, so I'm just going to scroll down through this list and find, you can't see me doing this, but I'm going to scroll down through this list and find the question that I wanted to give you previously. I think I picked it out right here. This is one, since we talked about file systems earlier, plus this gives you an idea of how this book works. Here's the book itself. This is question A25. So it's in my first practice exam that's on here. There's 3 separate practice exams in this book. It's page 10. You can't see because my head's in the way. There it is. Page 10 is where we are. This is question A25, and it asks, again, please no answers in the chat room. A system administrator is installing Windows Server device in the data center. Which of the following file systems would be the best choice for this task? Is it REFS, APFS, ext4, or XFS? All of these are file systems that you will find in the exam objectives. Now, if you've previously studied the 1100 series of the exams, you're noticing there's terms in here you've never seen before. That's because Microsoft's and CompTIA and Linux and other operating systems have many new file systems that have been added to the A+ exam. So you will see a number of those new file systems listed in this very question so that you know you're getting some of the latest questions that you would work through. Now, if you just wanted to know, if you know that it's A, B, C, or D, you could do that. Maybe as you're answering this question, I'm going to go into my PDF reader and I'm going to just highlight some terms. If you have a stylus, you can write on this because it is a PDF and it's open and available for you to make notes on. So you might be able to make some notes of things that you think might be the right piece, but this gives you an opportunity to really interact with the document itself. Another thing you'll notice is that if you just want the quick answer, whether it's A, B, C, or D, you can go to page 33. As I said earlier, we're on page 10. But if you wanted that, you go to page 33. We're going to go to the details, which are on page 63. But I don't want to have you constantly scrolling through this book, or if you end up getting the physical version, having to flip over to a different page to do this. Pardon me. There we go. We've got lots to go through in these books. So instead of having you scroll, I put hyperlinks on every single one of these. So when you hit the details, you notice it turns into a little hand. I'm going to click the details, and it takes you automatically to page 63. I know it's not rocket science, but it is kind of nice to have that there, where you get another copy of the question. And then you can see the answer is A, REFS, the resilient file system. And then you can see the Windows file system. It explains why this is the right answer. My problem with these exams, though, is I never get the right answer. I always pick the wrong answer. And one of the things that I found on other practice exams is they don't tell you why the wrong answers are wrong, which is a huge opportunity that was missed, I think. Because how are you supposed to close that loop? How are you supposed to close that circle between getting it wrong? There's an opportunity to learn something from that. So in my book, every single one of these answers that is both right and wrong are documented. So you not only know why the right answer is right, you know why every wrong answer is wrong. You know why it wasn't APFS. You know why it wasn't ext4. You know why it isn't XFS. And if you still don't have any idea why that is XFS or why it's REFS or why it's not APFS, you can always go to our video. This one happens to be the 2/20/12/02 Objective 1.1. File Systems is the name of the video. I have links that will take you there. I have a QR code that will take you there. So if you don't even understand the question, been there, you will be able to go through the entire video so that you get an overview of what this particular question involves. And after you're done with this question, you simply use the back button that's in your PDF reader. Did you know your PDF reader had a back button? It does. It probably does. Not all of them do, but all the good ones do. And then you hit the back button, you're back to where you started, and you can go to the next question that's in your list. That is my practice exams book that will give you 3 separate 90-question practice exams. On each one of those 3 practice exams, you get 5 performance-based questions and 85 multiple-choice-based questions. So another thing you can think about. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you were here for a 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. The way that you would earn that email from me is you must follow these steps. You go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website under the Contact Us link. I want you to click that and then put your name, your email address, and then in the subject line, put September 2025 Core 2 or 2201102, or however you'd like to label that so I know where this came from. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put the super secret code words of the month, APFS EXT4. So that's your process. You just simply click send and it goes over to me. You can put anything else in that message you'd like to as well. I do read through every single one of those. I enjoy reading your stories of where you are in your process of either earning your certification or renewing your certification. But if you need to do that, if you want to earn that 1 hour CEU, let me give you the process again. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. In that Contact Us form, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, put September 2025 Core 2. And in the body of the message on a line by itself, put our super secret code words of the month, APFS EXT4. Send that to me. It takes me about a week to turn these around, sometimes longer. I try to get them back to you as quickly as possible, but I will get it back to you, and that will earn you 1 hour. That is a webinar category hour CEU, Continuing Education Unit. That's what you would do if you were trying to earn those. Of course, there's other ways to renew your certification. You might not even be collecting CEUs. In that case, this doesn't apply to you. Don't even have to worry about it. Make sure you get the objectives, though. Those are free on the CompTIA website. They're very valuable. Make sure you are familiar with those. We do one of these study groups every month for the A+ Core 2. We also do one for the A+ Core 1. We did the last one 2 days ago on Tuesday. You will see this right here, that we have some already scheduled for October the 7th and October the 9th, our next two A+ study groups. We still have a Network Plus study group and a Security Plus study group this month. Another great place to learn more about those two certifications, and we've already scheduled them for October as well. I will tell you, though, sometimes my schedule changes. The chaos that is my life occasionally requires me to move some of these dates around, and if that does happen, I change them on this link immediately. So if you ever want to know what the latest is for the scheduling, you can go to professormesser.com/calendar. I also have an events channel in my Discord. Both of those are updated simultaneously. So if you go to either of those links, you know that you're looking at the latest information and what I know to be true at that very moment. As soon as things change, that's where I change it here. And that way you'll be kept up to date with when the latest will be for our live events. I have to figure out how that works for you. Well, we've gone through an hour of Q&A, but don't worry, we've got more questions for you. These questions, though, are going to come from you in our after show. You can submit your questions at any time using our URL, professormesser.com/QA, and we'll be sifting through those and finding the good questions to present in our second hour, what we call our after show hour. Don't forget about our Core 2 course notes and practice exams. You'll find them now on our website, professormesser.com/1202success. You can, of course, go there and find course notes, practice exams, an audio version of the course, the video downloaded version of the course, and more. It's all available there at professormesser.com/1202success. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers. You could save quite a bit of money by going to professormesser.com/vouchers instead of buying your exam at full price on the CompTIA website. Why would you do that? Just go to professormesser.com/vouchers. And don't forget, if you're on social media, we are too. We'd like to be where you are. And if you are on X, you'll find us at professormesser.com/X. If you're on Discord, you'll find us at professormesser.com/Discord. YouTube, you know it, professormesser.com/YouTube. We also are on LinkedIn. We're also on Facebook. We're all over the place. So wherever you happen to be, hopefully we're there too. And if we're not where you are, let me know. I can always start something up there. No, we're not doing any TikTok dances. You will not. No, you will not find any of those. But everywhere else, probably, I think we'll be okay. This is where you will go to get that. And that's one way that you can keep up with what's going on here, even when we're not doing a live stream. Well, that brings us to the end of this first hour of our A+ study group. Stick around for the second hour after show. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody. Okay, now's the time on Sprockets when we do not dance. No, there's no dancing on the TikTok. We have no plans. Now, I could probably do some TikTok videos, but it wouldn't be good maybe to do some Q&A TikTok videos. That'd be kind of fun. There's lots of things we'd like to try. I don't know if anybody would really like that. I don't know if that's really the right place for those, but it does give you an idea of things we can work on to make that happen. Let's now shift our gears a bit. If we're doing gear shifting, now's the time. One of the things that we do in this after show is answer your questions. So I want to know what you are thinking about and what you would like to know about. You can find that link to submit your question at any time by visiting our URL, professormesser.com/QA. Yep, it's the same one. At the top of the screen, you can flip between the questions I asked of you and questions you would like to ask of me. You can submit those questions for the second hour of the study group at any time. We will be moderating these questions. So when you submit the question, it's not going to pop up on my screen here, at least not for you to be able to see. It pops up on a screen behind the scenes. And I will sift through them and have a look at the questions that you have submitted in that view. You can, of course, do that and work out the specifics of that. So hopefully you'll get a little more involved with some of those. So I've got a few things that we can work through with the questions that you have submitted. I have one here that it's actually multiple questions that are here, but I'll summarize the question. We just won't put it on the screen for you to be able to look at these. There are a number of challenges with keeping up with Windows. One of the things you'll notice, in fact, as a precursor to this question that I'm about to present to you, I want to show you the exam objectives. Why am I showing you this? Because there's information here you might want to know about. Now, this is the set that you would download for free from the CompTIA website. You simply go to the A+ section on the website. You scroll down. In fact, here's an idea I could show you. So we could go to... I know it's crazy, right? Because we're on the web. Let's go to CompTIA.org. Here it is. There it is, the CompTIA.org site. You've seen it. It's been updated recently. We would like to look at certifications. I'm going to click the link for the very top for certifications. I'm going to click that, and it brings up a list of all the certs at CompTIA. Have you gotten through all these yet? You need to get to work. First one on the list, thankfully, is A+. We're going to click the A+ link to dive into that. And there's a lot of A+ happening here. Part of the reason there's this extra page that comes up is because we are in that transition period where there is both the V14 previous version and the V15 new version. So you see that there's a Core 1, Core 2, and combined Core 1 and 2 for both the V15 and the V14. So the one we're most interested in, by the way, is the current version, or the newest version, the V15. I'm just going to let's click on Core 1 and 2. And bring this up. So here's the page that comes up. It's the overview page. What you want to do is scroll down a bit, and there will be a red box on the screen that says, get A+ exam objectives and practice questions. And you can put in your email address, and they will give you access to the exam objectives. And once they do that, you will be able to see this. You'll download this and be able to work through it. The reason I bring this up is they have information on here on the second page in, or I guess maybe the third page in. Note on Windows 11, versions of Microsoft Windows that are not end of mainstream support as determined by Microsoft up to and including Windows 11 are intended content areas of the certification. Now, that means that currently both Windows 10 and Windows 11 are still valid topics for the current A+ exam, but as soon as end of mainstream support arrives, that is taken off the list. So this means that during this 3-year period, 3.5-year period, while this exam is active, you now know exactly what operating systems might apply for the exam. So, and notice it says up to and including Windows 11. So they're not going to sneak in. If Microsoft tomorrow said, guess what, everybody, surprise, Windows 12. Now, if that happens, still will not be part of this exam. At least not immediately. I don't know what CompTIA would do in that scenario, but since it takes so long to get a version of Windows out, I think we're safe there. As such, objectives in which a specific version of Microsoft Windows is not indicated in the objective title can include content related to Windows 10 and Windows 11 as it relates to the job role. And because of that, that's why as you go through my videos, you'll notice that I show you the Windows 10 screen and the Windows 11 screen, and I tell you how to get to both of those if it happens to be different. That's the reason that as we're going through that, that's why that's there. Now, one of the things you'll also notice on this exam is that it's a similar thing for the Core 1 and Core 2 of the 1100 series. So really, it's Windows 10 and Windows 11. So no matter what you are taking in the next 2 weeks, you will need to know Windows 10 and Windows 11. The question that we got in on our list was one that says, when the 1102 came out, Windows 10 had a different requirement for storage. And since Windows 10 has progressed through time, they have changed the storage requirements for Windows 10. For example, Windows 10, I think it was 16 gig of free space is what you need. Now it's 32. They actually changed the minimum requirements for the operating system because the operating system was changed through the years. So the question that we received was, which one do we use? If we're asked on the exam, is it 16 or is it 32? Well, it's both, isn't it? Yes, it is, which is why you'll never get a question like that on the exam. Do not worry about questions that could be interpreted as being vague or impossible to answer. You will not get questions like this on your exam. So don't even worry about it. So if you ever run into one of those scenarios where that's an issue, you can immediately put yourself and your mind at rest that you're not going to get a question where you're going to have to make a decision over two answers that could potentially both be correct. They're not going to give you that on the exam. The exams are actually very well built, and they're designed not to put you in that particular position. Every question you get on the exam is going to have a very clear answer associated with it. If you know your stuff, it'll almost jump off the page. Say, that's it right there. That's the right answer. So don't worry. You will not be put into a weird place where you're going to have to decide which one of these it happens to be. So certainly something to think about as you are going through your exams. And quite honestly, you're probably not going to get a lot of questions about Windows 10 at this point. That's not something you run into. Windows 10, in fact, when we were talking about this one, it was the mainstream support ending. That's something that, as we look at the lifestyle, the life of Windows 10, Home and Pro, their support, their mainstream support for these ends on October 14th, 2025. So if you are taking your exam after October the 14th, which is coming up pretty soon, we're going to hit that retirement for the 1102 people. This doesn't apply, obviously, but for somebody studying for your 1202, once you hit October 14th, all that Windows 10 stuff's not going to apply to you. It's not on the exam anymore because it is now out of mainstream support. And as we already know on the exam objectives, when versions of Windows that are not on mainstream support, they're not going to be in the cert. So that makes it easy. So hopefully that's given the person who submitted this question about Windows 10 and requirements for Windows 10 sort of a moot point, as they say, or a mute point, as I've also seen, is moot, M-O-O-T. It's a moot point. We do not have to worry about Windows 10 after October. October is now the end. Sad. Windows 10 is gone now. What are we going to do when it goes out of mainstream support? Are we going to have a party? Should we do something? Should that happen? Here's the mute point. And that's when your point is mute. Just like that. It's a little different than the moot point. Thank you for submitting that question. That was from Rochelle. Thank you, Rochelle, for submitting that question about Windows 10. Let's keep going through this list. We have other things to consider that you have submitted. Of course, you can submit questions at any time by going to the link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA to submit a question here for our after show. Let's keep going through this list. Here's a good one. This is a kind of a common request, and I think it's worth going through. This is from my very close personal friend, Anonymous. Anonymous asks, I currently have a job as a warehouse IT associate. I'm considering getting a 2-year degree in cybersecurity, as there are many jobs in my area. Do you think getting the degree will get me a better paying job, or is there a different route I should take that would be more effective? Let's talk about cybersecurity, shall we? That term, it is a very sexy term. It's a very marketing-ish, it is a hot term. We all want to be the cybersecurity people. And to be fair, there are a lot of open positions for cybersecurity. My friend Anonymous is absolutely correct. There's a lot of job openings for someone who is familiar and has experience in the world of IT security. The problem, though, is an entry-level job in cybersecurity is not the same thing as an entry-level job in information technology. Entry-level jobs have different tiers. For someone who is getting a position in cybersecurity, and for the purposes of our conversation today, I will define cybersecurity, which has no definition, by the way. It really has, I should say it has a million definitions. Cybersecurity, as we are approaching it in this conversation, is someone who works in information technology. You're not a computer science person. You're not writing applications. You're not building mobile apps. You're not building web-based applications. You're on the IT side. You're responsible for deploying the platforms that these applications will run on, ensuring that the applications remain up and running, making sure that the data created and stored by these applications are safe, and that your networks and operating systems continue to be updated and everything is running smoothly with no problems whatsoever. That's the IT side. That's what you will be responsible in information technology. So IT, you're working in a data center, you're working as a workstation administrator, a desktop admin, a server administrator, a network administrator, a network designer, a security professional, a security engineer, a security planner, a security designer, a security analyst. Those are the type of jobs you will see in IT, along with a lot of others, dealing with databases and mail and cloud, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So one of the things that is important to keep in mind, that if you are looking at some point to becoming involved in the world of IT security, cybersecurity, as we are stating it here, you need a solid foundation in a lot of other technologies. And this is, I'm sort of speaking along the lines of someone who has worked as a cybersecurity systems engineer with a focus on next generation firewalls. And I've done this and designed, planned, and implemented these systems in some of the largest networks in the world. So I'm approaching this question with a little bit of inside baseball, just so you can get a perspective of how we approach these particular jobs in the industry. The thing that you'll want to become very, very knowledgeable in to have a chance of getting a job in the world of IT security is you will need a very solid and well-established foundation in operating systems. You need to learn as much as you can about how Windows operates, how to manage it, how to do administration, how to integrate it with Active Directory, how to make sure all the extra Windows features work, and know how all of this works under the hood. Now, when I say that, I mean you're looking at the engine of the operating system. You're going to your car, you look under the hood, that's where all the action is. That's where all the work happens. So you need to understand, how does Microsoft's operating system authenticate people? How does it store our security data? How does it encrypt those drives with BitLocker? How do you recover from a BitLocker drive if you lose the key? You know, there's a lot of things that go into the world of operating systems and how they operate. You not only need to know the security side of these operating systems, you need to know how to just administer them as a system administrator. And when I say operating systems, I mean multiples of these. You need to know Windows at the basic workstation level. You need to know Windows Server at a minimum. And you also need to know Linux, and you also need to know Mac OS. And let's throw the mobile operating systems in there as well. iPad OS, iOS, some Android in there, a little bit of Linux. So those are operating systems we need to be not just sort of familiar with. You need to know a lot about these operating systems. Throw any other operating systems in there. You're like, yeah, VxWorks, Chrome OS, whatever you got, throw it in there. I think it's important that we all have a deep and solid understanding of SteamOS. I think that's where I spend a lot of my troubleshooting time these days. So if you're someone else who's working hard to learn as much as you can about SteamOS. I'm right there with you on that one. I'm very well tuned in to that. But you know about all of these different operating systems, and you not just know about them, you could design them and implement them in some of the largest network designs that you could think of. That's where you're shooting for. But you're not done yet. Not only do we need to know about operating systems, we need to know more about networking. More? Well, maybe a little bit more, but just as much, if not more. You will find in the world of cybersecurity, you're going to be doing a lot of networking. I would argue that cybersecurity is mostly networking. Certainly on the IT security side, mostly networking. Why do I say that? Well, I guess part of this comes from my approach of working with next generation firewalls, but you have to implement, every organization has a firewall. Every company you go to has one, probably more than one. In many cases, multiple redundant firewall implementations. So you have to be able to implement these firewalls into a switch network. Are these firewalls going to be layer 1 firewalls? Are they going to be layer 2 firewalls? A little bit more unusual. And perhaps even most common is layer 3 firewall. And how do you implement them in a fashion that is redundant, that has fault tolerance associated with it? How do you build out that infrastructure so that it integrates with your existing switch network? How does that fit in the routing protocols that you use? What about the VPN connectivity? That's got to come through those firewalls. And what about being able to have people authenticate to those? Okay, already you've now wrapped up all of those different areas I mentioned to you: operating systems, networking, and the security part. You see how they all layer on top of each other? This is why I tell people, don't think that you're going to be able to get a degree in cybersecurity and instantly go out and get a cybersecurity job. There are not a lot of true entry-level cybersecurity jobs out there. Now, I tend to get a lot of emails after these types of study groups where people will send me a note and say, but there are some entry-level cybersecurity jobs out there. And you're absolutely right, there are. In fact, if you're in a very large area, large geographic area, you're in the tri-state area, you're in a very large metropolitan area with a big sort of a class A, a type 1 type city. So you're in the Washington, D.C., Chicago, New York, Boston, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Dallas type LA scenario. So those big type cities, those tend to have companies that are very large. And those very large companies also tend to have a security operations center, a SOC, SOC. The security operations center it's kind of a help desk, but it's a help desk for security things. So in that SOC, you have people that are triaging security instances, security events, and they are determining what the company needs to do with those particular events. And so we need that first level, you can think of them as help desk people, but they're really more like first level SOC people. And they are looking at the security requests that are coming in and determining, is this important? How important is it? And who needs to handle it? So you're in charge of triage. Those are very common entry-level cybersecurity positions. They qualify as cybersecurity. I'm putting them in that category because you're going to soak in and learn so much about the security environment just by having that position. The challenge you have, it's very difficult to move from that triage SOC position into a higher level cybersecurity because you simply don't have the foundation yet. So ultimately, you get way back to your operating systems and to your network. So I will encourage you that if you are looking at a future where you would really like to do cybersecurity, and I absolutely encourage that because it was a ton of excitement, something interesting every day. It was fun to work in cybersecurity when I was doing that. Go do that. You will enjoy it. It will be some of the most difficult technical troubleshooting and management you will ever do. And at times it will be even surprising to you. There are stories about my days plugging into people's networks and the things that I would see and the people that were taken to jail because of the things that I saw on the network. Didn't expect that when I started the job, but it turns out that's what the job comes with. So you don't just jump into those positions. You just really need to build up into that position. So I would highly, highly encourage you to perhaps not have cybersecurity as your next hop in the job field. Go get the workstation administration, server administration. Learn as much as you can about operating systems. Learn as much as you can about the network. And that is going to position you better than anything into making the hop into cybersecurity. You'll be able to leap over everyone at that point, because who doesn't want those skills on their network protecting their data? The only way you're going to be able to do that is if you have the foundation to be able to do it. So this is not something you can do in months. This is something where you set a strategy for 2 years from now. I want to be in a position where I can at least put in a resume for a cybersecurity job. And that's a pretty aggressive schedule even at 2 years. Some of you are working it. Some of you are, you're trying to make it happen. You are driven. You are motivated, and you should be, because IT, more than I would say any other type of vertical market that you would run into, whether transportation, manufacturing, healthcare, government, the one that gives you the most amount of flexibility, the one that gives you the most number of options in your career and in your paycheck is information technology, more than any of those others out there. Now you just have to take advantage of it. You're here. It's been handed to you. We're giving you, here are the skills you need to get started. Now go do that. That is the important part of that. And it's not just technology either. We've talked often in our live streams about needing to meet other people in the industry. So if there is a Microsoft user group in your area, there's a Cisco user group in your area, there's a Palo Alto Networks user group in your area, go to those meetings, meet those people. Ask if you can send them a resume. Ask them if they've got open positions at their company. Ask them what they think you should do to be able to get an entry-level position into their cybersecurity department. Ask them. One of the things that you will find in our industry, and this is everywhere I've gone in the world, I have worked worldwide working with technology. I've flown many countries around the world and talked to the technologists. The technical people are just so nice. They want you to succeed. They are more than happy to encourage you and give you suggestions and offer ideas. Ultimately, it's kind of a small group of us. And so that's one of the things I often tell people is just ask the question. There's the great question. You go to the Microsoft user group meeting, you're wondering how am I ever going to start a conversation? And you can say, hey, I'm here for the first time. And you probably have a badge on, it probably has your name and where you work. You work at that place. You work at that big building that I drove through by to get here today. I saw that big building. You must work there. You guys are doing some amazing stuff. Tell me, if I wanted to work there and get into your IT department, what would you recommend I focus on? Who should I talk to? Can I give you my resume to put into the big pile of resumes? And you may find that people are more than willing to do this. In fact, you may think they're really overeager about doing it. And that's because many organizations will have an employee referral program that if you bring a resume in and we hire that person, you get paid as an employee. You get a finder's fee. So I have friends that I've worked with in the industry that were really good at this. They would get everybody's resume. They would submit everyone's resume to HR. And then if they got hired, they got a little bit of extra money in their paycheck, which was kind of nice. So another one of those things really depends on where you are. If you're in a big city, if you're not in a big city, it depends on how much you know. It depends on who you know. There's a video that's in the YouTube video description of this video called How to Get a Job in IT with No Experience. And I outlined 4 different elements that are important for you to have to get that job, because it's not just what you have learned. The foundation is important, but there's other things you could think about too. What about your formal education? What about your industry certifications? What about knowing someone who works there? Oh, well, there's your connection in the Microsoft user group, the Cisco user group, the Palo Alto Networks user group. Once you meet people there, now you can say you know them because you do. You've met them. Oh, yeah, I met him. When you go into interview, I'm here because I met Fred, who's in your IT department, and we talked for an hour about the things you're doing with your security infrastructure. And he said you guys are looking to ramp up your workstation management, that's right in my wheelhouse. I'm looking forward to it. Well, you already know someone who works there. This, especially in our market today, our market's extremely competitive right now. You are fighting tooth and nail against everybody else who's submitting a resume. How are you supposed to make your resume and make your credentials better than anyone else? What if you knew somebody who worked there? You often hear that it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's not actually the right phrase. The idiom really is, it's not just what you know, it is also who you know. Knowing someone who works there becomes very useful when you're in the job hunt. And we like to hire people we know. We like to hire people that is a friend of a friend. This is one of the important things about that. So get your LinkedIn up to date. If you don't have a LinkedIn, get a LinkedIn. There are a lot of people you'll see online that they'll talk poorly about the LinkedIn. And in some cases, they're pretty straight on. But there's things on LinkedIn that perhaps aren't great, but it's still a great place to look at somebody's professional offering. And if you've got a home lab that you can highlight on your LinkedIn page, if you've got reports that you've built after you implemented your own firewall at home and you did some IPS work and you showed how many attacks are coming into your system, I talk all about this in the video. It's a 30-minute video. It's super long, but it's chock full of information. That might be something you might want to go through to be able to do that. So just try whatever you can to be seen. And that is one of the most important things about getting your resume in front of people, having the right resume, making sure that you have a customized cover letter. There's a lot of interesting things people are doing right now to get the eyes of people who are hiring. And you have to kind of think outside the box right now. This is not one of these times where you can just shotgun a bunch of resumes and hope somebody calls you back. You need to have a much better strategy than that. And I give you some tips on that in that video. Let's talk about, another question from my good friend, Anonymous. Mr. Moose asks, the best jobs to look for in the Central Florida IT market. Well, that's pretty specific. I'm going to take this question, though, and sort of apply it to the world, because I don't think Central Florida itself is incredibly unique. I don't think anything's really incredibly unique, though. You can't be incredibly unique. You can just be unique. In any case, the Central Florida IT market, not unlike the New York IT market, not unlike the Washington, D.C. IT market, not unlike the Dallas IT market, and so on. The thing that we focus on in IT is a niche, is our current set of knowledge. It's our foundational knowledge, the one that I've mentioned to you since we started the last half of this study group, that you need to build your foundation. You need to create this knowledge of technology that you can then use to apply it towards getting a job or getting a better job. And the same thing applies whether you are in Dallas or Central Florida or Miami or New York or LA. It doesn't matter. The type of jobs that will be available to you will be the ones that match that particular foundation. And although the type of companies is different depending on where you go, there is a commonality across all of them. There's also some places where you'll notice there are regional differences, so you do need to be honed into that. A good example is the Washington, D.C. area. There's much more of an emphasis in having a security knowledge in the D.C. area because all of those federal jobs expect you to have a particular foundation of security knowledge. Security Plus is a good example of that. So you may see a lot more people in DC, Maryland, Virginia asking you about Security Plus than if you were looking at jobs in LA or looking at jobs in Dallas, for example. But you will still find people asking about these. And that's why I tell people all the time, whenever you're working through these jobs, whenever you're looking at getting that first position, one of the things that you will run into is we're trying to give you the best possible job for what you know. So you sort of have to start at the very bottoms of technology, but what you will find is you will be able to grow very quickly. Things move very fast in IT, not just fast with the new technologies that come down the line, but you will find the faster you learn, the more job opportunities suddenly become available to you. There's a huge emphasis in IT about knowledge. There's a huge emphasis in your skill set. You'll notice that companies will often hire people with very diverse skill sets because one person can't know everything. What? It's true. One person cannot possibly know everything there is to know in the world of IT. Now, you could be very knowledgeable across many different types of technologies, but there's still going to be gaps where even one person is not going to be able to do that, to make that happen. So one of the things that I tell people all the time, one of the most important parts of this is you need to build out that skill set so that you have the flexibility to go wherever you want. I see this a lot when people are transitioning from different positions they've had or different markets and they're moving into IT. So if somebody was a truck driver and they want to move into IT, somebody was working in law enforcement, now they want to be in IT. They were working in medicine, now they want to do something in IT. And one of the things that's a challenge there is not really the learning part or the getting a job part, it's really the money part. Because if you built out part of your career in one area and then you suddenly shift over to IT, you sort of have to start at the bottom again. This is another one of those times, though, that those of us that have been in the job field before, we've had positions, professional jobs, other places, we have a pretty good network of people that we know. So that is the times where we really have to use that network of people to get us a job that will help us move up quickly so that we can kind of take the financial hit at the beginning, but quickly move forward and get more money at a higher paying position because they're out there. That's what we do in this industry. We tend to, I've heard people refer to it as the 3-year plan, that generally you work in an IT position for 3 years and then you move and go to another company because we tend to get a pay bump when you leave a company and go to a different company. And so if you are staying somewhere more than 3 years, they must be paying you pretty good. They must be giving you great benefits. There must be something about that company that is super good. That's why I stayed at Palo Alto Networks for 7 years when I was there. So after we got through 3 years, we were just getting started. So we stayed, every day there was just ridiculous. It was crazy, insane, and amazing. Just one of those where you really need to find jobs like that. The more you study, the more you learn, the more you are enabling yourself to find that better job and the next better job and the next better job. The only person limiting you is yourself. The industry is not limiting you. There, of course, are, economic ups and downs, certainly. But when you have the skill set, that is something that is undeniable. And the more skills you have in that skill set, the less competitive the job market becomes because you've got a smaller group of people with those skills. Find the niche that works for you. My niche when I started was Windows and the workstations themselves. I won't tell you how far back I go with computers, but it's pretty far. We used rocks and we would just beat the rocks together, and that's how we did technology. But we soon evolved and Microsoft Windows became a thing in the corporate world. My first big push was at workstation administration and network administration and deploying Windows across the network and automating that process and making it run across the network. Microsoft Windows used to run really well from a server. Interestingly, from a remote desktop perspective, we've sort of done that now here in the present. So that was where I started, was on the workstation side. And that sort of evolved into more of a server side because the servers and the workstations are so closely intertwined. And that evolved into learning more about the network, getting into the protocols, understanding how to troubleshoot this entirely unknown language of data that's under the surface of every network that normally we never see. But suddenly now we're able to see it through the use of protocol analyzers. Not just that, you see everything running across the network. And I become an expert in, or hopefully as expert as I could, at understanding protocols going across the network, and got a job working with the largest protocol analysis company in the world at that time, Network General. So that's where I thought I knew about the network. I started working there. Whoa, I had to really learn more. So you never stop learning. That's one of the things I think people don't perhaps understand very well about this industry is it's always something new. There's always something you don't know that you can learn. And the more you learn and the faster you learn, the faster you will move up in this industry. So whether it's your Central Florida IT market, it's an IT market anywhere else, the same thing applies. If you're in Central Florida, there's a lot of entertainment, and we're certainly a big hub for people that are visiting on vacation. But you also have jobs in Central Florida that are federal positions. Lockheed Martin has a huge Florida presence. You've got insurance companies, financial companies, you've got communications companies, you've got internet service providers. It's just like any other large metropolitan area. So the important part is to find the niche in your area. You know, if you're in Miami, there are a lot of cruise lines you can work for on the technology side. You don't really have that choice if you're working in Nebraska. You know, there's a different set of companies you would work for. Maybe there's more finance or more manufacturing or more insurance. You know, there's different areas and different companies depending on where you go. You just need one job. You don't need a job at all these companies, just need one job. So go find the companies in your area, find out what they're hiring for, find out what they want to see in a technical person, whether that's on the job posting or whether that's from the people that work there directly, and then go do that. People often ask me, they will say, so what should I do next? What certification should I get next? I can't answer that for you because I'm not hiring you. Not that I don't like you. I'm just not hiring. You need to go find the people that are hiring. What do they want you to have? That's what you should be working on. And nobody on the internet, I certainly can't tell you. They can't tell you. Nobody can tell you what you need to do. You need to figure out what employers in your area are looking for. That's where you should probably focus. There's got to be a match there between your interests and what they would like. And that's where you can put those two things together and have that love connection. That's where you need to focus and be able to have that there. Let's go through more questions you have because we have some time left. See if I can sift through more of these questions that you have. Other things there. There are a number of questions that have come in about our A+ vouchers on our website. If you've not seen these, let me bring it up. It's at professormesser.com/vouchers. Vouchers. Let's see if I can have that there. We'll get that single screen going. Let's see if I can type today. We'll have to see if that happens. The voucher page on our site has a list of all of those vouchers that you saw on the CompTIA website. These are all discounted vouchers. They're discounted right out of the gate. They are also, for example, we'll go to A+. Oh, thank you, ads from Google. Let's look at the A+ page. The A+ page has information on it that says the A+ voucher normally in the United States is $265. If you were to buy it on my site, $239. That's it. It's just on the screen. Just buy it and you're done. You don't have to have a coupon code. You don't have to put something in your browser. You don't have to tell me a secret number. You don't have to log in. None of those things. You just purchase it. And you're now paying less money than if you were on the CompTIA website. We also have their retake assurance option. That's something that CompTIA has recently added. And you can, that means that when you get the voucher, you take the exam, and if you pass the exam, that's it, your voucher's done. But if you fail the exam, you can use that same voucher code to take the exam again without paying any extra money. I guess you paid some extra money. You paid $49 sort of at the beginning. You can think of it as an insurance policy. So that way, if you do fail, you don't have to pay another $239. You know, you've already paid $49 up front to be able to do it again. Some people use this as a learning tool, and it does take some of the pressure off, certainly, where you can walk into the exam. You don't have to worry. If you fail, you'll just take it again. In fact, here's your opportunity to do some intel. You can go into the exam and not just hope you pass it, but pay close attention to the way the exam is set up, to the way the questions are written. You'll probably even see some of these questions show up again on the next exam because it's just a randomized pool. And statistically, you'll probably see one or two of those show up on your second time through. or you might pass. You have to worry about it. If you scroll down to the bottom of this, there is a set of voucher terms and conditions for retakes. So it even tells you if you fail the exam on your first attempt, use the same voucher to register and retake the exam. The retake, just like any other voucher, expires 12 months. And that expiration date means you have to take the exam before the expiration date, not just book the exam. It's an important consideration. That's also up here, by the way. It says the retake is only valid for the same exam version you failed. You cannot use the retake for a different version of the exam. Oh, they figured out. I was going to buy a retake, take Core 1, pass it, and then use the retake for Core 2. No, you can't do that. They're already on to us, everybody. So it's a single retake. For voucher purchase that include a retake, if you fail the exam in your first attempt, you use the voucher to register and retake the exam for your second attempt, at which time the voucher is no longer good after your second attempt. Whether you passed or whether you failed, that voucher is now spent. You've now used it. It is an X voucher from that perspective. So that should give you an idea of how those retake vouchers are used, and if you should use one. And they are all discounted on my site, and I show you that discounted price on the screen so that you know exactly where that is. Let's keep going through this list. Some great questions coming in, by the way. Thank you for submitting these. These are always fun to go through every time we do one of these after shows. It's interesting to see what people are working on and what things they are asking about and going through the world of this. This one's pretty good. I'll at least give you my perspective of it. This is from Nigel, who asks, "Good evening, Professor. What do you think would be the best way to get into digital forensics? Thanks. I find digital forensics fascinating. Fascinating. It's very remarkable how you can get your hands on data, how you can understand where data is stored in an operating system, how you understand where data was not expected to be stored in an operating system and suddenly is, where things are on a hard drive, the type of information you can get out of hidden areas that are on a drive, how you would find the hidden information on an SSD. It's a remarkable field. I've spent quite a time in my world of cybersecurity working with really very well-established, very smart people in the world of digital forensics. And if anything, it showed me that I know nothing about digital forensics. I mentioned earlier, there's always something to learn. This is a really good example of this. Digital forensics and pen testing, penetration testing, both of those fields are like the highest levels of security technologies you could ever hope to get into. This is not entry-level work, people, but it is fascinating. The people that I've worked with and talked to in the world of digital forensics, you have to become so familiar with the operating system because you're going not just under the cover of the operating system, not just under the hood, you're going into the individual pieces, parts of every file that makes up the operating system, every library, every executable. You know how the operating system works under the surface, which is not an easy thing, by the way, to really get down to that level of an operating system. But that's what you have to know to work in the world of digital forensics. If you start looking around, there's a number of really good examples of this. There's great stories about how government agencies have been able to get their hands on data that people would never expected them to be able to get their hands on it. Encrypted Windows data is a really good example of this. How do they do that? Well, it's very interesting how they go about doing that. And it is a well-coordinated effort because if you make one mistake in the world of digital forensics, it could be the difference in having access to all of the data and having access to none of the data. And so there's a lot you have to know and you have to do it right. I'm not that person. I would not be very good at doing this, which is why I probably did not get into the world of digital forensics. I still find it fascinating, though. It is remarkable how people are able to pull information out of areas of a storage drive, out of memory, out of a system that you would not expect to be there, and yet they're able to provide that. There are absolutely just as many instances of digital forensics. I was reading through a digital forensics expert. This was somebody who was presented as a technical expert for a jury trial. It was for a criminal trial. And they provided an analysis of a drive image, and they provided information of what they felt was in the drive image. And it was someone who had worked in the world of digital forensics. They had a lot of fancy titles under their name, but the information they provided in those digital forensics reports simply were not correct. And when you start bringing in people on the other side to refute those and say, well, they did that, but they didn't do it this way, and therefore that data is not valid, you do start to see how particular this field is at being able to obtain data, obtain the right data, and then perhaps more importantly, analyze what that data means. What does that stand for? Why does that data exist? And what does it have in this larger context? That's obviously a much more difficult problem. But these expert witnesses they're many and varied. Some are super good, some are not super good. It's like any other industry, I guess. You start to find people that are super good at digital forensics, other people not so much. So I think the field of digital forensics is fascinating. It is something you can really build a career on. There's never enough people because obviously we have more and more and more instances of problems with security, and whether you're working for a government agency that's going in and dealing with criminal issues, or you're working for one of these high-end consulting arms that are usually associated with a security company. For example, Palo Alto Networks has their security experts that will parachute in if you are hacked, and they will take care of everything in your environment, figure out what happened, get into the forensics of what happened with that particular attack. They will piece through the entire remaining part of your network to figure out what went on. Maybe that's who you work for. They make some pretty good bucks. So it's a great field to be in. And if that's something that interests you, again, it's not entry level, but working towards that is first, by the way, it's absolutely something you can do. That's one of the great things about IT. That's something that interests you. You can learn what you need to learn to be able to do that. That's it. That's why I say it's so much better than healthcare. If healthcare, you might learn everything you need to learn about the hand, and your expertise is in the hand. Well, do you think you're ever going to be able to do anything else in your life other than work on a hand? You'd have to restart your entire medical career. But in IT, you just start learning about that other thing, and now you can go do that. Otherwise, I'd still be working on the help desk. I'd still be dealing with Windows questions on the workstation. But you can move up, you can learn and move up and do all of those things. So I think forensics is a fantastic way to move in this industry. You will never be worried about getting a job if you know everything there is to know about forensics, and you do that very well. Lots of jobs out there for that. And that's one of those that becomes pretty important. And it's so many interesting tools they have. I love all the tools, the little imaging tools they have, and the way that they're able to get data off of a drive and make sure that they're not able to manipulate or change any of the data on the drive. And then how do you store that information? It's just fascinating. Just an amazing field. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. My particular role in cybersecurity didn't get up to that level. Mine was more of working at the next generation firewall level, which was interesting and challenging enough for me. Maybe I hit the top. Maybe that was done for me. Maybe I would never been able to get to the forensic side. There was just so much to learn with next gen firewalls. And even since I've been working in that role as a systems engineer for next gen firewall company, now there's even more to learn. These devices do twice as much than they did when I worked there. So I would have to start training myself again. There's more to learn. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be training. You're always going to be learning the next thing, which is, I think, a good thing. Let's keep going through this list. Let's put a little bow on this one because I think it's an important one to talk about. Godfrey says that I'm attempting to take the 1101 and 1102 for college course exemption before registration. What is the hard expiration date for them? Godfrey, I don't know if you're going to like my answer. It is September 25th, 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks from right now, as we are here live, it's going to retire. So if you're going to take both the 1101 and 1102 before registration, I don't know if that's what you should go with. Is there a particular reason they're locked into the 1101 and 1102? Because if all they're looking for is you to have an A+ certification, those are not the two exams you should be looking at. You should be looking at the 1201 and the 1202. Here we go. This kind of gives you a summary of these two. So on the orange on the top here is the 1102 dates. The 1101 and 1102, these were released on April the 20th of 2022, and they retire on September 25th, 2 weeks from today. But notice that the 1201 and 1202, those came out March 25th, and they're going to be around until 2028. So if your requirements are that you simply need to have an A+ certification, you should be learning the 1201 and 1202. Do not study for the 1101 and 1102. And I bet if you asked them, they would tell you that as well. They would say, no, we just need A+. That's what you want, is those two things. So that's what I would say as well. Should probably go check those out and see what they really want before registration. I suspect they just look for A+. And I think that's one of the things that most people are asking for. They just want an A+ certification. They don't care which version it is. In fact, you might have earned your A+ certification 10 years ago, and you've simply renewed it every 3 years to where we are now. You took the exams 10 years ago, but as long as you keep renewing your cert, the A+ cert that you have today is exactly as valid as someone who passes the 1201 and 1202 exams today. So it's all about just having the cert. And I think that's where most people want. The only time somebody's ever said, I want you to have an A+ certification, and it has to be from these versions, are usually people that are in the training area, and they're training people on these versions. So there's a requirement to have people that are properly trained for that version of the exam. That's obviously a very small niche, a very small group of people that will worry about that. Just so you're aware of this. I know we're at the top of the hour. Let me see if I can fit in another question here in this mix. This sort of fits into that same question a bit. So I think this one from Jennifer would be a good one to go to. It says, my school emphasizes Core 2 is easier, so they push taking that one first. I see you out there, schools that do that. I think there's quite a few that actually do this. Do you think that matters in the order? I don't think that there is a difference in difficulty level between the Core 1 and Core 2. I think both of those exams are both the same difficulty level. So if we're talking about someone who's platform diving, that dive has a difficulty level associated with it. There's another dive that they do that has the same difficulty level. Both of those dives are just as complex. And I would say the Core 1 and Core 2 are identical to each other in their difficulty level. However, if you've done one particular dive your whole life, you're probably going to be a little better at that one than the other one. So you'll probably be able to do one dive better than the other because you just are very more familiar with that particular dive. Same thing happens with technology. If you've been working with operating systems for a long time, you're very familiar with Windows, you've gone through the process of installing Windows yourself, maybe you've installed Linux, maybe you've got a virtual machine that's running on your system, the Core 2 exam is going to be much easier for you because you're already familiar with those technologies. But maybe you've already built your own computers before. You've bought the motherboard, you've installed the memory, you've installed the CPU, you've built this entire system from scratch. Core 1's probably going to be easier for you because you're more familiar with the hardware side of things, and a lot of the Core 1 exam is hardware. There's obviously networking and cloud and other things in there, but the bulk of the exam, the largest percentage on the exam is probably going to be the hardware side and the troubleshooting of the hardware. So the term easier is relative. It's relative to your personal knowledge of how these exams are structured. It's relative to what you've done in the past. It's relative to what knowledge you have and how fast you can learn. And sometimes certain topics are more interesting for us. Maybe Windows and Linux is more interesting for people than understanding memory and motherboards and CPUs. Maybe that's the case. And in that case, Core 2 will be easier than Core 1. But for many people, Core 1 is the easier exam. So it's all relative. I don't think it really matters the order. And obviously, from CompTIA's perspective, they don't care which one you take first. You could take Core 2 first, pass that, and then take Core 1 and pass that one. They don't care. As long as you do both of them, they don't care which ones. You just have to make sure that both of them are from the same series, which means that you can't take the 1101 now, have that entire series retire, and then take the 1202. You can't mix and match them from one to the other. You can't take 1100 and 1200 and squeeze them together. It doesn't work that way. So if you have already passed your 1101 exam, you have already passed or your 1102 exam, you got 2 weeks to get that second exam done. Bottom line. And if you don't pass the second exam in 2 weeks, you start over. You go all the way back to the beginning. I shouldn't say all the way back at the beginning. You'll find the Core 1 exam for the 1100 is very similar to the Core 1 exam for the 1200 series. So there's not a restart all the way back, but there is additional things that you're going to need to learn if you want to make that transition. So just keep these dates in mind. That's going to be the most important thing for you over the next 2 weeks. Make sure you're taking the right exams from the right series. Make sure that you are able to book an exam in the next 2 weeks. That's not a given. It's not a guarantee that you'll even get a slot. So make sure you're familiar with all of those. When I say there's a lot of similarities between these exams, I do have a document on my website, an article I wrote, and it's in the very top page for the 1201 and the 1202 video index pages on my site, where I show a demonstration. I go through the process of really comparing these two exams. So for example, on the 1201, everything that's yellow, the left circle in this Venn diagram is the 1101. The right circle is the 1201, and the yellow and blue make green. Everything in the middle that's green is what's shared between both of them. Notice that 87% of the exams have exactly the same content on them. Okay, that's good. You don't have to restart. But notice that we drop off 15% of the 1101 and add on 13% to the 1201. So about 40%, 30% of the exam has changed. We'll say that, just under. So there's differences, and you need to be aware of those differences, especially if you're planning to take these exams. It's going to be really important. Your next 2 weeks for you people still studying for your 1100 series exams, very important. If you don't have your exam date booked, book it now. You can always change the date if there's availability to change, but once those slots fill up, that's it. So make sure you book your exams if you need them before the 25th of September. That will be super important. I don't want to see you holding the bag and not having anything that you can do if you run out of slots. You're not able to take those exams. That would just be awful. But if you do have to restart and you do have to come over to the 1200 series exams, we have everything you need to get going. So we'll help you out. We'll get you there. I just don't want to see you spend money where you don't have to. Make sure you pick the right exams at the right time. You get those slots. You get that exam done. You pass that exam, and you've earned that A+ certification. I believe in you. You can absolutely make that happen before the 25th of September. Well, I think that brings us to a great place to stop for this study group. Thank you so much for joining us. We have such a great time in the first hour with the Q&A. You guys crushed it this time with the questions. I will be making them harder next time because I'm on to you. But you've also got a lot of great things that you've provided here in the second hour. Thanks for sending in your questions. We do one of these every month, but we've also got Network Plus and Security Plus study groups coming this month. If you'd like to join us next week, on Wednesday of next week, 12 noon Eastern Time, we have our Network Plus study group. If you ever want to know when the next study groups are, simply visit our calendar at professormesser.com/calendar or look at the events channel on our Discord. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everybody.